part of the visionary communications pathway in Toastmasters program. It's my first pathway, by the way. And the assignment in this particular module is to identify my leadership styles. So what the Toastmasters did is they gave me a questionnaire, and I answered the questions as best I could, and then they gave me a score. There was about 8 different potential leadership styles, and they ranked me according to my answers. And the top 3 were innovative style, collaborative style, and decisive style. So I'm going to explain a little bit how that actually fits in nicely with how I see myself, which is I want to either be already or become a person who seeks the truth, speaks the truth, and stands for the truth. So with regard to the first, innovative. When I was young, I mentioned last week when I talked, some of you didn't hear it, but last week I explained that when I was in 8th grade, I wanted to be a scientist because I wanted to pursue understanding. And then a little bit later, I became interested in philosophy, and then I became interested in Christianity. So my horizon expanded from the physical to the metaphysical. And so when I talk today about seeking, speaking, and standing for the truth, I'm going to be talking about the entire spectrum, not just one type of truth. But I don't want to talk today about untruth. Untruth is a total separate category, which really involves malevolence, and it's a matter of love or hate. So I'm staying away from that today. Today I'm going to be talking about more of the objective, but also the subjective truth. So with regard to innovation, that's a big on my list because we really have to look for evidence. And the evidence is sometimes buried. And sometimes you can't make a good decision based on limited evidence. Let's just give you an example. Let's say I have a jigsaw puzzle and it has lots and lots of pieces. So I start, and if I don't have the box that the puzzle came in, I won't know what the picture is going to be. So I have to kind of guess at it. And then if I can make a good guess, it helps me put the pieces together. Well, let's say I start putting it together and I say, oh, I think the picture is going to be a chicken. But then later I put more pieces together and I say, no, I don't think it's going to be a chicken. I'm changing my mind about that. Now I think it's going to be a duck. And so you put more pieces together. No, not a duck, a goose. And then more pieces. No, not a goose, a swan. Okay, the more and more evidence you put into place, the more correct your vision is, your answer is, but also the more beautiful it becomes. So really, innovation is big on my list. Now, the second leadership style is collaborative. And collaboration is really important to me because we come up with our own ideas, which are often subjective, and we come to conclusions that may not be right. But if we share what we're thinking with others, there's a chance that they could say, well, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Maybe there are other factors that could fill in some of the gaps and paint a better, more correct, more beautiful picture for you. And so I think that a good analogy is the blind man and the elephant. A lot of you have heard this story. I won't get into it in depth, but a group of blind men were exposed to an elephant not being told what the animal was. One blind man experienced the trunk, so later on he said, that animal was like a snake. Another one was exposed to the leg, and he said, that animal was like a tree. Another one was exposed to the stomach. They said, that animal was like a wall. Another was exposed to the tail, and they said that animal was like a rope. They each were adamant about their experience, but totally different from one another. But if they were put in the same room and discussed it, they might say, aha, now I know the answer to this riddle. It is an elephant, indeed. And then, of course, the other leadership style that fits me quite well, I think, is decisive. Because a lot of times, I don't really want to stay in a state of bewilderment. I would like to be able to get some practical conclusions, some idea of what does all this mean? Can I make sense of it? Can I use it in a practical way? And so, for instance, if I get enough factors, I might say, here's my hypothesis, I think it's this. And I'll work with that, assuming that is the case, but always stay open to the idea that maybe that's an imperfect model. It's kind of like a hypothesis that has to be tested and refined, and they can grow. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this book called Grit. A lot of you have heard about it. I've mentioned this before in the past. The subtitle of the book is The Power of Passion and Perseverance. And really, if you are indecisive, you're unlikely to ever develop a passion for your hypothesis. But if you say, wow, I've seen something here, bing, the light goes on, and I'm passionate about my vision. And really then, if you're passionate about it, it's so much easier to keep going even when things are not easy, even when you're fatigued, even when you have setbacks. And really that is part of what this gal, the Angela Duckworth, is talking about. In fact, you can find a TED Talk that she did when she explains that even children can be taught more to be gritty, to have grit, and part of that is the idea that even if you fail, that's really a stepping stone towards developing. Because your mind can say, okay, that didn't work, now I'm going to try something a little bit different. And if you keep that up over a period of time, it's really a growth mentality, a growth mindset. It's almost like, yes, we can be overcomers. And that's really important. But as I mentioned early in my speech, I said that sometimes the things that we deal with are not objective. They are subjective. And then it becomes a little more tricky. Just as one illustration. If I had a painting and I said, here's a painting that I like very much, and then I asked people, do you like it also? Some people would say, that's strange, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. Okay, how about you? How about you? How about you? How about you? But when you go around the table, everyone has their own opinion. Now, the question is, who is right? Is it a likable or an unlikable painting? Well, everyone is right because in their mind, their one best depends on a subjective evaluation. My one best is this, your one best is that. So that's why the idea of best is really a fallacy if you think it applies generally. It applies to you as an individual. It doesn't apply to everyone. Another example of this would be sets of rules, like in baseball. The American League has a different set of rules than the National League. Some people like the National League rules better. Some people like the American League rules better. Who's right? Well, we are not allowed to change the rules in the middle of the game. If you say, okay, I'm going to play the game, I accept the rules, we have to live by those rules. And if we do, we can play the game. And hopefully the game will be fun. It's not always fun. You don't like to lose a game by a lot of points. But if you can be competitive, if you can become a champion, that's fun. So I would say this is really important to think about. Now, more can be said on all of this, but it's really a big story and something we have to think about. But for the time being, I'm going to continue to seek the truth, speak the truth, and stand for the truth as I discover it or as it is revealed to me. Mr. Toastmaster.